Where did we come from? The Bible says, in the beginning, God created. Evolution teaches the opposite. No one created. It all happened by itself. Which one is the truth? This is Headquarters. Doc M. Jackie. And Rich. Their job? Investigate and discover the truth. This is The Creation Case.
Actually, let me show you something. It's a picture of a canyon in Georgia. It's called Providence Canyon. It's a beautiful canyon, 150 feet deep in some parts. Do you think it was formed millions of years ago? It was only formed 150 years ago. First thing to remember, it doesn't take millions of years to form a canyon. It just takes the right conditions. I think I'm going to write that down in my journal.
It doesn't take millions of years to form canyons, just the right conditions.
Another example of that is the volcanic eruption at Mount St. Helens in Washington in 1980. Shortly after the eruption, huge canyons were formed practically overnight. Remember, you don't need millions of years to form canyons, just the right conditions. If we think about it, what kind of evidence would we expect to see if a global flood did happen? If the world was covered by one big giant ocean during the flood, we would expect to see a large deposit of sediment at the bottom of the ocean. Nice, smooth layers. We would see evidence of the floodwaters draining away from the higher places. We'd see billions of land, sea, and air creatures buried rapidly all over the world. We'd find evidence of massive amounts of vegetation that got ripped up and buried rapidly. If a global flood did happen, those are the kind of features we would expect to see. So, what do we see? Exactly that. We see layers and layers of sediment neatly deposited, canyons that show how water quickly eroded the land, billions of creatures buried in the ground, huge amounts of buried vegetation that have now turned into coal and oil. All of these things can be seen on every continent of the world. It seems like the planet itself provides tons of evidence that a global flood did occur. A coincidence? I don't think so.
Every step leads us farther down. As we descend, we become surrounded by the hoodoos.
What an amazing view. I've got to sketch this. You know what? I have an idea. Why don't we go visit one of the most dramatic examples of erosion in the world? Come on. Let's get back to the Jeep. We are heading to the Grand Canyon.
Hi everyone, it's Doc M here at HQ. If Rich is investigating erosion today, I just know the flood will be part of his investigation. You know, almost everyone has heard of the flood story in the Bible. Here's a classic painting. The Ark. Oh, look, cute little sheep and lions and everything. Some people choose not to believe in the Bible. They just assume the flood is not a true story then. What many people don't know is that the Bible is only one of the many historical documents in the world that talks about the flood. Yeah. Historians have documented almost 300 stories from ancient historical texts from all over the world that talk about a flood and the basic storyline as told in the Bible. Look, these are some of the modern and ancient names and countries and cultures besides the Bible that describe ancient stories about an enormous flood. Argentina, Assyrian Babylon, that's modern day Iraq. Australia, Bolivia, Brazil, British Columbia and Canada, Cameroon, Chile, China, Ecuador, Egypt, Germany, Greece, India, the Ivory Coast, Kenya, Korea, Mexico, Mongolia, Nigeria, New Guinea, New Zealand, Peru, the Philippines, Rome, Scandinavia, Siberia, Thailand, Turkey. Wow! And even in the United States, dozens of Native American stories about a great flood, even from Alaska. That's almost 300 different stories, and some of these documents are thousands of years old. Is it really a coincidence that people from practically every corner of the world wrote about the same huge event? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Look at this ancient Chinese word. This is the Chinese character or the Chinese word for large vessel, a ship. The word is made up of 3 separate characters. Look at what the 3 characters are. Ship, right here, 8 up there, and people right there in the bottom right. All together make a large vessel. Even languages that are thousands of years old tell the story of the Great Flood. That's why I'm convinced and believe more than ever that God is my creator.
You know what? I've got to pull over so you can see this. This is one of the most amazing parts of the southwestern desert.
What seems like an endless desert here continues to amaze me with these incredible views.
This place is called Monument Valley. A long time ago, this used to be a giant ancient sea until the water drained away and eroded these cool mountain formations.
These tall formations are called buttes. They show us how the different rock layers each contain different elements that erode differently. Isn't it amazing that everywhere we look, there is evidence of erosion by water?
This is the Grand Canyon. No one ever forgets the first time they arrive here and look over the rim, down into the canyon. A lot of people think that this is just a big giant crack in the ground, but it's not. We're actually 7,000 feet above sea level on a high plateau. The bottom of the canyon is still 2,500 feet above sea level. It's amazing to think how big this canyon is. It's about 18 miles across at its widest point and almost 270 miles from end to end. To get a good look at this place, we need to hike down into the canyon. Come on, let's go.
As we head down into the canyon, the first thing we find are steep switchbacks and very uneven terrain.
Here at the Grand Canyon, evolution teaches that the Colorado River at the bottom carved out this canyon over millions of years, but physical evidence points more to massive erosion. After a global flood, you would expect to see massive lakes and seas forming all over the world. If a lake were, say, 8,000 feet above sea level, you would expect it would want to drain to lower ground. That's a lot of pressure, a lot of water trying to get to lower ground. If a small leak were to develop, the earth would give way to a massive torrent of water. That's actually what we see here. It appears that this high desert was at the edge of a huge inland sea after the flood. As the waters drained, this edge of that sea wasn't able to hold back those waters, and they rushed down towards the Pacific. The pressure of all that water eventually carved this canyon into the ground.
It's possible that at the end of the flood, water from that large inland sea rushed down into the Pacific Ocean right through here.
The Colorado River cuts down the middle of this canyon, but there are also hundreds of very deep side canyons here too. There's no evidence that a river cut those side canyons. So how did they get there? It appears that they were carved quickly by one massive event. Tons of water gushing through here, not millions of years of rivers.
The rate of erosion today is slow. It's caused by natural events as well as man. But the dramatic erosion that happened here was caused by something huge.
The other thing about the Colorado River, it enters a canyon at about 2,800 feet above sea level and exits the canyon at about 1,800 feet above sea level. Water runs downhill, right? But as the river is going down in elevation, the land around it is only going higher. A river couldn't have carved this canyon because rivers can't flow uphill.
It's very possible that this canyon was eroded at the end of the flood as the waters receded.
Another thing is the smooth lines between layers. We can see it here at the Grand Canyon, we saw it at Bryce Canyon, and we also saw it at the Badlands. Evolution teaches that each one of these layers at some point was the top layer, millions of years ago. But have you ever seen perfectly smooth top layers all over the world? No, these layers were laid down at the same time.
There is some evidence that some layers tilted sometime after they were deposited, and that they were eventually covered up by new layers. This event seems to have really turned the world upside down.
Sometimes fossils can be found going through multiple layers. How could a log or an animal become partially buried, wait there for 1,000,000 years, and finish getting buried? This also shows that no time passed between layers. I think I'm going to write that in my journal.
Fossils that go through multiple layers are evidence that there are not millions of years between layers.
Over and over, the evidence here points to the layers of sediment that were quickly deposited on this earth, as well as the massive amount of erosion that carved the surface of our planet. We sure visited some amazing places for today's assignment. Water looks so harmless when you drink a cup of it, but the evidence we've seen today shows us water has enormous destructive power, especially when there's a lot of it involved. Well, I need to finish up my report and send it to HQ. Remember, if you want to read it, just go to our website.
There is so much evidence on the surface of our planet that shows how water has eroded the landscape all over. It doesn't take millions of years to form canyons, just the right conditions. Fossils that go through multiple layers are evidence that there are not millions of years between layers.
When something erodes, it pretty much always means something is getting destroyed. If there's one thing we need to protect from erosion, it's our relationship with God. How does that happen?
The Bible says in Psalms 101:3 that our eyes shouldn't look at things that are wicked. That means you have to be careful of what you watch or do. What kind of movies or TV do you let your eyes watch? What about the things you see on the internet? Or what kind of books do you read? Another thing, don't wait for someone else to tell you what is good or bad. Start being responsible for your own decisions and avoid things that will erode your relationship with God. I hope you'll join me again for our next assignment. Remember, God the Creator loves what He creates, especially you. Good night. Wait, don't go yet. We've got bloopers.
And where are we? Badlands. Roaded out of here.
I think someone just stabbed me.
Again, the evidence shows... What? What does it show? Violent rush of water down the canyon. Craziness ensued.
Does the evidence show that this happened?
According to the Bible...
Argentina. Yeah, that was pretty backwards, wasn't it?
True or false?